Fall is, I was talking to someone about this in the recent past couple days. Fall in a lot of ways is almost like a January. You know, September can often feel like January. We're back a little bit. We're back into different rhythms. We're back into school. We're back from vacations and things like that. And we just said, hey, how in this season of transition, in this season of fall, do we just lift our eyes? Do we just lift our faith and our expectation and say, God has more for us? One of the things I love about Jesus is that there is always more with Jesus. There is always more with Jesus. Jesus was so good at helping people see more. Jesus was so good at helping people see a level deeper and a level higher and a level further. If there's ever a time in your life where your faith, your relationship with God, your engagement in places like this grows stagnant, maybe it feels like it stalls out or it's stale, I just want to let you know that is never on the fault of Jesus. Okay, like anytime we have a series of weeks or maybe months or even years that there's a dry season, there's a dry sense, it is always user error. Okay, it is always because we live in a broken world or because we are broken people and we get distracted and disillusioned and disappointed and sometimes tired in our pursuit of Him. It is never because Jesus stops having more to offer. It's never because Jesus runs out of resources. And I love that with Jesus, there is always more. There is always greater. There is always more of Him to experience. And I want to look at a passage with you today in John chapter 4. John 4, if you want to turn there, I want to give you some context for John chapter 4 and to do it because we're going to jump in about halfway through the chapter. And so let me give you a little bit of context for what's happening in this chapter of the Scriptures. John chapter 4, it's 4 chapters into the book of John, and Jesus is starting His earthly ministry. Really, He's kicking off this earthly ministry. He's called disciples to follow Him. He's called people to come and apprentice, to come practice under Him so they may be with Him and be like Him and do what He did. That was Jesus' goal. He wanted to train these guys up, just like a plumber apprenticeship, right? The goal at the end of the plumber apprenticeship is that you are a plumber on your own. You no longer need a teacher. You no longer need someone to apprentice you. You are self-sufficient. You're on your own. And that was Jesus' goal. He was trying to raise these guys up so they could lead, so they could be difference makers and change bringers to the places that He had called them. And Jesus is in His ministry. He's on His way to Galilee. He's going from Judea to Galilee. He's going north to south. Now, to get from Judea to Galilee, you have to pass through Samaria. And Samaria at the time was pitted against the Jews. These two regions of Israel at the time were not friendly toward one another. It could be in a lighter sense like Michigan, Ohio State, okay? So they were close geographically, but the value systems were different. The priorities were different. They wore different jerseys. They did not associate with one another. And Jesus is passing through Samaria. And if you were a Jew and you were passing through Samaria, you were head down. You were like, I'm going to get there as quick as I need to go. I'm not going to make any stops. I'm going to have enough supplies and resources. I don't know how they had gasoline for their camels, but they did, right? They brought enough fuel for the journey so they wouldn't have to stop in Samaria. And Jesus stops in Samaria. He stops at a well in the middle of the day. And there's a woman there. And Jesus has this conversation with this woman. He actually asked this woman for something. He said, hey, would you help me get a drink? She has something there to draw water out of this well. Jesus said, hey, would you help me? Now, in that moment, Jesus crosses all kinds of barriers. All kinds of barriers. First of all, He's a Jew traveling through Samaria. He stops and has this conversation with a Samaritan. Barrier number one. Barrier number two is He is a man talking to a woman who he does not know, who he's never seen. Immediately, she's got her red flags up. Like, this guy is weird. This guy doesn't obviously know the codes and customs of the day. What does this guy want from me? Barrier number two. There's a third barrier Jesus crosses. See, Jesus starts to have this exchange with this woman, and he says at some point in the conversation, hey, go call your husband and bring him back. And she said, I don't have a husband. And Jesus says, you're very right. You've had 5 husbands. And the man you are with now is not even your husband, not even legally, not even contractually wedded and united to you. Now, I've heard this passage, maybe like you have heard it, is that when Jesus calls out her sin, she does have a level of brokenness in her life, right? She's had 5, at least according to Jesus in this text, 5 marriages, 5 contracts, 5 covenants that have been united together and then broken, united together and then broken. 5 times she's experienced this, and now she has this 6th relationship happening. And I've heard this as, man, this woman was evil, or she was dirty, and she left these guys. She left, and she was going to the next guy and going to the next guy, that kind of picture. Now, that could be true, but let me just give you a little bit of the Joel Standard version, okay, the JSV here. So I can't prove this fully in the text, but the reality was of the day, women could not issue divorce. Women could not initiate the divorce process. Now, certainly they could pack up and leave, and I'm sure that happened. But 5 times, you have to say it somewhere along the way, she was rejected. She was moved on from. She was the one on the other side. She was the one with the divorce papers that didn't want to receive them. And just imagine with me, if that's happened 5 times, you got to say, man, I want to be with the man. I want to have this relationship. Maybe this one will work, but I don't know if I can do a 6th time. I don't know if I can. In her brokenness, she's in this relationship. And yes, it is broken, but you got to imagine Jesus initiating this conversation with her, and he calls out her sin. He calls out her shame. But here's what he does. He doesn't leave. He acknowledges the places she's broken, the places she's missed it, the places in life that have been disappointed and empty. But Jesus says, I'm still standing here. And let me just encourage you, we are the Samaritan woman. We are the Samaritan woman. We are the person that have messed up. I don't know about you, but I messed up more than 6 times. We are the person that Jesus still stands there by the well and offers grace and truth and presence and hope and friendship and conversation and connection. We are that woman. We are that woman. Jesus crosses this racial, this group tension divide. He crosses this gender divide. He crosses this divide of her shame, and he says, I'm still standing here. I'm still standing here. And this is where we pick up the story, John chapter 4, verse 27. So he's having this conversation. Jesus says, yes, I am the Messiah. I am the Christ. And it says this, verse 27, just then, as this exchange is happening, his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman for the reasons we just discussed. Surprised to find him talking with a woman, but no one asked, what do you want? Or why are you talking with her? Now let's pause right there. When you tell a story to someone, you have a conversation, you're telling a story to someone, rarely do you include what didn't happen, right? Like, how was your day? Good. I went to work, and I didn't go on I-96, and I didn't go to Chick-fil-A for lunch, and I didn't talk to Jeff at the office, and then I didn't come on 96 home, and then I went the back way, and then I got home. No one tells a story like that, right? Unless what you wanted to happen didn't happen. Okay, like unless, man, I went to the office and lunch was good, I had Chick-fil-A and I was there, and I was really hoping to catch up with Jeff. But I didn't, so I gave him a call on the way home, right? Like, you include it if you wanted it to happen. Now, John's trying to highlight something here. He's trying to say, this should have happened. This conversation, these questions should have been asked. Look at number 1. No one asked him, what do you want? Jesus, rabbi, teacher, leader, what do you want? What's your priority in this moment? Jesus, something is happening here that my human brain is not computing with. You could see that there was surprise. There's a level of surprise. And that's not just, oh, wow, Jesus, what kind of social interchange are you engaged in now? This is a man, they're shocked. They're overwhelmed. They are surprised. But no one asked Jesus, what do you want? Jesus, what's going on here? Or number 2, why are you talking with her? What's in your heart, Jesus? What's on your mind? What motivation do you have for this conversation? No one asked this. And you can imagine at least 12 of the disciples come and they have this surprise on their face. They're just stank facing her at the moment, right? They come up to this conversation, they're just like, and so what happens? She leaves. The disciples' reaction, the disciples' surprise, the disciples' lack of questioning, lack of curiosity, lack of openness. She's like, I'm out of here. I like this Messiah guy. Your disciples need some work, okay? Then, leaving her water jar, verse 28, the woman went back to the town of Samaria, and said to the people, come with me. See a man who told me everything I ever did. And I will just add this, and didn't leave. Could this be the Christ? Could this be the Messiah? Could this be the chosen one, the messenger? Could this be him? They, the people, came out of the town and made their way toward him, Jesus. Meanwhile, his disciples urged him, Rabbi, eat something. But he said to them, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. Then his disciples said to each other, could someone have brought him food? Jesus said, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Jesus just got done telling that woman he has different water to offer, living water. Jesus said, if you come and drink and experience me, you won't thirst again. Now Jesus says, I have different food. I have more food. I have deeper food. I have a deeper purpose. I have different priorities. Jesus right now is trying to help them see the more. Jesus is trying to help them get in touch with the more. He's trying to lift their eyes. He's trying to deepen their priorities. And what Jesus will do in the next couple verses is get them back to his heart. Get them back to the reason that he called them. Get them back to the mission. The mission. In this moment, Jesus is going to use it as a teaching point. He's going to use it as an aligning point to say, you guys need to get back on the mission. I have a different sustenance. I have a different motivation. I have a different hope and perspective and vision. And it is the mission. What is the mission? Jesus said, I've come to seek and save the lost. I've come to reach people who are far from me. I've come to cross those barriers you're seeing me cross in real time. I've come to heal. I've come to give hope. I've come to give light. Jesus says, that is the mission. And he would do the same thing to us. He would say the same thing to us, that I have a different set of priorities oftentimes than you do. I have a different sustenance. I have a different fuel. If you'll get in touch with my priorities and my mission, you'll experience that made for more. He'd say the same thing to the church, that the church does have a mission, but so often we can be like the disciples. We can have our own priorities. We can have our own questions. We can have our own desires that we think are the desires and the wants and the hopes of Jesus. And Jesus, in the next couple verses, will reorient them to why he has created them. See, the disciples in this moment are a picture of the church. They're a picture of Jesus' followers like you and like me. And I've heard this phrase before in terms of the church. I've heard this idea. It's a powerful statement, is this, that the church is the hope of the world. The church is the hope of the world. Some have said like this, the church is God's plan A to reach the world, and he doesn't have a plan B. The church is the hope of the world. And it's a good statement. I don't fully believe this statement, though. I don't fully believe this statement. The church is the hope of the world. What I do believe is this statement. The church on mission is the hope of the world. The church on mission, in alignment with Jesus, in his priorities, in his vision, in his mission, that's the hope of the world. The church that comes and we sing a couple songs and we go home like nothing ever happened, that's not the hope of the world. The hope where it's all about Joel and Joel's preferences and Joel's priorities and what makes me feel good and what I like to listen to, that's not the hope of the world. The church that leaves me comfortable and conforming to culture and shaped by my own ideas and ideologies. That's not the hope of the world. The church on mission is the hope of the world. And what Jesus said is when you do that, when you align with that, you will have different food. You'll have food for the journey. You will be fueled and furthered up on that mission. You'll experience more. And if you think about the mission, you think about our world, the world you live in, the world I live in, the capital W world and the small w, the lowercase w world that you live in, you interact in, you work in. There's some bad news. There's some bad news. Like we think about our world, there's some bad news to acknowledge. There's some bad news. There's cultural conflict. There's distrust in leadership, in the church and in systems and organizations. There's political divides, there's preferences, there's questions that are big and deep and all-encompassing. There's wars, potential of wars. There's some bad news. And you think about the church, you even think about the church even smaller than that. There's some bad news in the church, if we're honest. There's some bad news. In 2023, there was a study of about 900 U.S. pastors. And this study had a lot of different things of, hey, rate your church in these areas. It was done by the Barna Group, and they invited pastors, hey, self-identify, self-label your church in these areas. And one of them was this, to rate your church's effectiveness in reaching unchurched people. Rate your church's effectiveness in reaching people beyond its walls. In that whole assessment, 900 U.S. pastors, 1% labeled their church as very effective at reaching lost people. 1%. 1%. Now, I think that's like the goal of the church, right? Like it is. I think that's still the mission. So for 1% to say we are very effective, that upwards of 60% we're totally on the other side of the spectrum of we are not effective. Very, very much not so, like anti-effective. But 1% say, yeah, we're actually winning in that. We're actually winning in that. Now, I hope that's just a bunch of humble pastors, okay? Like, no, we are, by the Lord's grace, we're decently effective, you know? No, but 1% said, no, that's us. We're doing that well. We're winning at that. Shrink that even down to our region of churches. Chris Conrad was here last week and is the district superintendent for the Great Lakes district. We get to be a part of the Great Lakes region and in the Midwest here. And so there's a report. You file into a report on what happens in your church over the last fiscal year. In the last fiscal year of the Great Lakes region, 15% of churches saw no one begin a relationship with Jesus. 28 out of 180 churches said we can't track one person who began a relationship with Jesus. And I know what you know. That is not because there's not a need. It's not because there's a lack in the demand. There's some bad news. But there's some good news. There's some good news. Is that Jesus looked to his disciples in this moment who were off track, who had got it wrong, who had the wrong set of priorities, the wrong set of agenda, and he just realigns them. He just get a little chiropractic adjustment. He realigns them in that moment, and he's doing the same thing today. Jesus still invites us and includes us, even if there's only 1%. He said, hey, 99, come on, come and learn, come figure it out. Let's do it together. Let's get back on track. He still invites us and includes us. How does he do it? Let's continue in the passage. Jesus said, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Do you not say 4 months more and then the harvest? Which was a saying of distraction, a saying of delay. It's like, hey, the next season is going to be the one. Hey, that's for later work. Jesus says, I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. How do we partner with them? How do we get back on the mission? How do we realign with him? The first is to look, Our daughter Thea is 2.5, and with your first child, you just think everything is normal, right? You just like whatever they do it's normal. Like how she eats and how she goes to bed, it's just normal. Like every kid does that, right? Because you only had one kid. So people have told us, man, her language is pretty advanced. And if you've been around Thea and she's warmed up to you, it takes about 90 minutes to 2 hours for her to warm up. And once she warms up to you, you just see like the fire hose of verbal communication is set off. And she's just talking and she's making jokes and she's being funny. And well, one of the fun things about this stage right now is that her L sound, la, 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 is a Y sound, yeah, 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 yeah. So you can imagine what that looks like, right? It's not the library, it's the yibrary, right? Like it's not college, it's college. You know, it's like everything is just, it's a yeah sound. And one of my favorite words she says right now is the word look, because it does not sound like look. It sounds like yuck, yuck. And usually the phrase is this, yuck, daddy. Yuck, daddy, yuck. Yuck, mommy, yuck. Now, when you're in the other room from her, there's an alarm that goes off in your head when she says, look, yuck, daddy, come look. Because I'm like, oh no, what is she wearing? What has she put on her 3-month-old brother? Like, what am I going to walk into this room and find, right? But when Thea says, yuck, yuck, all she wants in that moment is for me to realign with her priorities, is to come see what she's a part of. Come see what she's excited about. Come see what she's wearing. Come see what she's doing. Come see what she's drawing. Some of us, we came to church for a one-word sermon, and it's this word, look. Look. Jesus would say, open your eyes and look. And there is some bad news, but there is some good news, is that Jesus still invites us and includes us in his mission, in his hope, in his heart to reaching people who are far from him. And the first thing we got to do is just to look. You will never see people, you will never reach people that you don't see. You will never love people you don't look at. And Jesus says, look. And if we look beyond some of the issues we can focus on, sometimes there is good things happening around us. There's good things happening in us. There's good things happening in our nation. There's trends in Gen Z that spiritual interest is increasing. There's college campuses. We just put together a collage of some of these college campuses. 10,000 students, 2,000 students, 500 students gathering. Places like Kentucky and Auburn University in Alabama and Texas A&M and Kentucky State and Asbury. There's things happening, and sometimes Jesus will just say, look, like Google a good headline for once. Google a good headline for once. Look, open your eyes. The harvest is ripe. Look at the fields. Look at them. He says, look. But don't just look. He says this, even now the one who reaps draws a wage and harvests the crop for eternal life, so that the sower and the reaper may be glad together. Thus the saying is true, one sows and another reaps is true. I sent you, my disciples, to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefits of their labor. Jesus is saying, I've been tilling this soil for a long time. For the disciples, there's been prophets, and there's been the nation of Israel, and there's been messengers. There's been John the Baptist. He's come, and he's prepared the way. He's put in seed, and I'm calling you to harvest. I'm calling you to look, and don't just look, but go. Don't just look, but go. Go into the field. Go into the places. And don't just go to go. Go because you are sent. Go because you're sent. Look, because where you're walking, I'm working. Where you're walking, I'm working. And don't just look, don't just see the opportunity, go into the opportunity. And he says, I've sent you there to do this, to reap. I've sent you there to reap. There is a harvest to be reaped. There are people to be engaged with. There are things to be brought out of people. There are things to put into people. I've sent you to reap. And don't just look, don't just go, but gather. Just saying gather. There's a harvest. There are things good happening around you that you get to harvest. And I love this idea that Jesus said, I've sent you to reap. I've sent you to harvest and to gather. And you didn't earn it all. You didn't do it all. How many of us, when we've been investing in someone who's far from Jesus, we've come to know we aren't the only one. We aren't the only one. There's been people who've gone before us, and God has worked sovereignly in details and scenarios and events in their life, and we get to partner in with what he's already doing. To look and to go and to gather. And Jesus said, I've sent you. Don't just go to go. Go because you are sent. We'll experience more with Jesus. Some of us, we want to experience more peace with Jesus, more purpose with Jesus, more of our gifts being unleashed and unlocked. We'll experience more with Jesus when we are living on mission with Jesus. We'll experience more of his presence when we're more aligned with his priorities. We'll experience more of his joy and his confidence and his assurance when we know we are doing the will of the one who sent us. And his will is to first see and to go. And so I want to do everything in my power with the Spirit's help to gather, to see a harvest of conversations, to see a harvest of people. See him and know him and experience him. I love the story of the woman because we don't know all of what was shared in the town. But we know that there was something shared. There was a story she had, an encounter she had that she let them in on, and it leads to this great harvest. If you read later in the passage, you see that many of the Samaritans believed. There was a harvest. There was fruit. There was something that was reaped. And because of this encounter, Jesus would just say the same thing to us. Look, like who is around you? Who is around you? Who is in that new social circle you just jumped into in the last month? Who is in that new Zoom call you're in because you got a promotion? Who's in that new class that you're in as you start school tomorrow? Who's in the new friend group that you've jumped into this summer? Who's in the new ministry team you've joined in lately? Look. And would you not just see them? Would you go to them? Would you extend a hand? Would you extend your story? Would you extend grace? Would you extend a conversation? Would you extend connection? And by his grace, by his power, he wants us to be people who gather, who get to be a part of bringing in a harvest.